Welcome to another edition of We Need to Talk About Movies, brought to you by banterflix.com. And now, here's your host, Jim McClean.
Hello. Yes, I am indeed Jim McClean, the editor-in-chief of the Banterflix movie review website and the host of this podcast, We Need to Talk About Movies. If this is your first time listening to the pod, you might be wondering what it's all about, and you might be wondering who the hell are Banterflix. Well, allow me to answer both those questions, dear listener. Banterflix is a Northern Irish-based film review website, and this podcast reflects the cinematic tastes of many of our members, and that's why our output is so eclectic. So hopefully you enjoy. If you've been listening to us for a while, thank you for continuing to check in and listen to the show, and hopefully if you've been enjoying what you've been listening to, don't forget to leave us a lovely review wherever you get your podcasting fix, because that helps us attract new listeners to the pod. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Cobra Kai. I know it's one of the series that a few members of the Banterflix team have become rather obsessed with, so I thought we would have a chat about it. We do get a little bit spoilerific on this pod, so if you haven't seen to the end of Season 3 of Cobra Kai, which is currently on Netflix, I would maybe recommend holding off listening on this pod, go back and listen to an older recording that maybe you haven't got round to listening to yet, because we do chat spoilerifically, and we have Joanne Alexander on this recording, so yeah, sometimes things get a little bit mucky, but we've come to accept that from Joanne. Let's be honest, I'm going to be on this pod, but I'm handing over hosting duties to Banterflix's master storyteller, Darren Vincent, because he's a huge fan of Cobra Kai, and we actually have a real life sensei. We have Toney, who runs the Antrim Karate Club, and all the details for Antrim Karate Club can be found in the show notes for this episode. So it's a lot of fun. I think without any further ado, we'll get stuck into this week's recording. But before we do, let's play a little clip from Cobra Kai.
Is anyone here?
We're closed, darling. Well, if you've got a youngster you'd like to put on the list for karate lessons, I'd be happy to help you.
Is one of those lessons how to jump a bunch of kids and break one of their arms? Because that's what your students did tonight.
Did they? Must have had it coming.
Like my daughter deserved it when one of your minions attacked her at the high school?
Ah, that must make you Mrs. LaRusso. What's the matter? Little Daniel's not man enough to fight his own battles anymore?
Hey, Rambo. Kids are getting hurt. So call off your band of karate thugs or I'm going to the police. Got it?
You're a feisty one. But I like that. I like it.
I don't give a shit what you like. You're a sociopath. And I'm shutting you down if it's the last thing I do.
Hello, I'm your host, Darren Vincent, and welcome to this karate chopping edition of the We Need to Talk About Movies podcast, brought to you by the Banterflix website. Today, we're going to be talking Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai, the American comedy drama show following on from the original Karate Kid movies by Robert Mark Kamen. This is set 34 years after the original, and obviously, in my personal opinion, after the best of the series, the original Karate Kid. It follows the perspective of the original antagonist, Johnny Lawrence, played by William Sadka, and it's set in what's now known as the Miyagi-verse. So I thought, what better way to discuss this than develop a panel, just so we can talk about, why is it the most watched show on Netflix in 2020? Why is it being recommended left, right, and center by everyone? What is the hype about, and does it really deserve? It's a show that's on everyone's lips at the minute. Does it deserve the credit it's getting? So without further ado, let me introduce our panelists that will be waxing on, waxing off as we discuss Cobra Kai. And I'm really, really sorry for this intro in advance. So striking hard, we have local blogger and cosplayer known as Head Scout. It's Joanne Alexander. How are you doing?
No mercy! No mercy, Sensei Darren! No mercy!
Also, we have striking first, Toney, the owner of Antrim Karate Club. Hi, Gary.
How's it going?
And of course, showing no mercy in the background is our very own editor-in-chief, Jim McClean. Jim, how you doing back there?
Cobra Kai never dies, Darren. Never dies. And I just want to say, of all of the people, I feel sorry for Gary, because Gary has to put up with that. I'm sure that type of stuff every week from Joanne whenever they're sitting doing the karate, So I don't know.
It's peaceful now that we're on Zoom and I don't have to listen to her. She just follows me instructions. It's a lot easier that way, to be fair.
Gary genuinely is my sensei. I do karate, and also Gary takes circuits as well based on karate. And there's no fucking mercy with Gary because we know everybody in the class is like, that's not a porn thing, by the way. That's just me heavy breathing.
Straight in, guys. It didn't take long. How long was that?
Yeah, 2 minutes in. But look, that's
Not
great.
bad.
We
Not
will
bad.
go into that. I'd love to know the dynamic of that class you take, Gary, and how Joanne gets involved. So we will get to that. So look, I'll start with you, Joanne. Obviously, the listeners, it is a Cobra Kai podcast panel we're doing. Do you want to give us a bit of an intro as to what Cobra Kai is about and basically why you love it so much?
Well, as you say, Cobra Kai set 34 years after the original, and it takes an interesting slant. It changes who the protagonist is and who the hero is. We've gone from Daniel San being the old clean boy, the boy who was trying to make good in the world with Mr. Miyagi, to a man who actually really has. He's now has his own car dealership. He's a beautiful wife. He's 2 kids, one of which who's shit at karate, and the other one is just a fat boy. But we'll get into that later. And then you also have poor Johnny Lawrence. And where's Johnny Lawrence after all these years? Still living in the 80s, still rocking it, still looking at porn mags. Actual porn mags, not even online porn, doesn't know what Facebook is. He's a total troglodyte, but you can't help but love him. He is the body that kind of had maybe at the end of Karate Kid. He maybe sort of had he had a shining bit with Kreese whenever he stuck up. He fought against him a wee bit. Admittedly, he got his mult knocked in, and Miyagi had to step in, but he never really got beyond that. I think he was kicked in the head so hard by Daniel that he never quite made it out of the 80s. And that can only explain why he doesn't understand what a website is, or what Facebook is, or what a hashtag is. He keeps calling it a hash brown. There is so much to Johnny, apart from just being a sexy beast.
Clearly you like him then. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah.
Can you tell?
And it just seems that, he's obviously still, as you said, stuck in the 80s. He seems to be a character that's sort of trapped in that original All Valley tournament at the end of the original Karate Kid. It seems that most of the characters in Cobra Kai are still living off that, whether good or bad. And Gary, I'm sure you're no stranger to any, to a karate tournament. Is it a lot like in the Karate Kid films, what you guys do in Antrim?
Well, the karate tournament way back in the 80s, whenever Karate Kid first came out, karate would have been at its height, very much so back then, in terms of the competition. It was very hard hitting and stuff like that there. I was only born in the 80s, so I only seen it when I was about 5 or 6, to be fair. But the competition from watching Karate Kid, it's very much traditional karate in terms of how they do it, with the sporting element of it and things like that. There are a lot of people get confused as to karate is a sport. My opinion is karate is a martial art, full stop, and it has a sporting element within it. But ultimately, the way in which those guys are trained in terms of how they fight to defend themselves in the 80s, that was by far at its peak. So it was. So yeah, competitions such as the All Valley Championships would have been similar to that. It's kind of, the winner stays on as such like that, and you move through your categories. So I've fought in competitions all over the world, and I could have 20 fights before I get to a final. I know. So your fitness levels and stuff like that there, it's very, very tough to do it.
Yeah, no, and it's great you said there, it was at its height probably in the 80s, and you do see that throughout Cobra Kai. You see these guys saying, there's a scene where he's trying to recruit people to the new dojo that he starts, and they say no one does karate anymore. We all know it's still as popular as ever, but it's obviously that he's trying to overcome that mentality now. It's not what it was. There's so many kids nowadays are into so many different sports and activities and martial arts and everything. So you do get to see that struggle. And what I think is great that it shows you starting from the sort of beginning of the new karate with, you know, his new dojo and with the relationship with Miguel. And how did you find the sort of dynamic between that sort of, you know, I almost say son and father dynamic, but we'll get to that later. But how did you feel with the initial, you know, when he's meeting Miguel and he's sort of bringing himself back into the 21st century through this boy? How did you think about that, Joanne?
I thought he was almost slightly racist to start off with. Johnny can be quite a problematic character. He's not quite PC, but he does it in the most adorable kind of way that you find it hard to take offense. And even Miguel's kind of throws him back a wee bit, because he basically calls Miguel on their first meeting round the back of the bins an illegal alien. It's a lovely relationship, though. I think it's everything that Johnny probably always wanted with his son that didn't really happen. I had a look on Wikipedia earlier, and allegedly Johnny left his wife before she gave birth, because his mother had died at that time, and he just sort of lost his way. And he learns so much from Miguel. I mean, I think Miguel saves him pretty much the way Miyagi saves Daniel. I think there's more to it that way. It's almost like the roles have been reversed. Instead of Johnny being the father figure, Miguel's his guide. Miguel is showing him what the world is like now in the 21st century.
I've been watching the series, and I admit I hadn't seen Karate Kid 3 in years. I sort of vaguely remembered the second one. I've never seen the Hilary Swank one, so hopefully I don't offend anybody if I haven't seen that. Jim, you're holding your hands up there saying, oh my God, where do we get this guy from to host? But I've never seen it. So, but I don't think that affected my watch of it. But, you know, what struck me from that relationship with Johnny is that they've just taken, you know, that character from the first one, and they have a huge backstory to fill out, you know, just from the one film. And as you said, you're reading up online, you've got the story of how he left his wife. There's another character that we need to, you know, play into, you know, all this from the first film. It just is a real testament to the sort of creative force behind Cobra Kai. So, and with the complexities of the characters, and you do find yourself feeling sorry for Johnny, and sometimes you are rooting for him, and that's really the heart of the story. But what else, Gary, did you pick that up with the writing as well? Did you think?
Well, just to kind of like agree with Joe on that there, I think Miguel has kind of led Johnny into a different era of how to be an actual human being. I mean, his time with John, his sensei and stuff like that there, it wasn't nice for him, but he relied on karate to get him through everything. And this opening the dojo has really brought him a sense of, you know, he does start off about, you know, strike first, strike hard, you know, ask questions later. But you see as it goes through series one that he starts to, you know, come away from that and get a little bit more humane, as such as like maybe we don't need to strike first, strike hard as much as it's the motto of the club. There's a better way of doing it, and you know, to be strong as in have the karate to defend yourself, you know, and putting the principles across. I think more importantly, what they're doing is they're putting the principles of karate further in to Cobra Kai now, about, you know, how you should act, and how way back in the first Karate Kid, it was all about being Johnny Lawrence being the big bully, the big guy, you know, I am this, and you don't do as I say, I'll knock 2 pounds of shit finger to you, like, you know. And he has moved away from that because he's not like that no more. And it's nice to see how karate has changed him in that way. You know, and Miguel coming along has given him that sense of fatherly figure, as Joe had said, where he had lost that on his own son, and to try and right the wrongs that he had done.
Yeah, and it probably is something that he lacked in the first film. He didn't have that control and that, you know, appreciation for karate as he did, and that's originally why he lost the first tournament, and he's learned that. So,
well, he didn't lose it too hard. Like, you know, he was into the final, to be fair. Like, you know, yeah. And like you say, second is only first loser. And you are right, he did lose it, to be fair. But I think whenever you look at the figure that he had, an old war veteran who, you know, had gone past his time and all those history, that he was the case of, if you don't do it, you'll die. type of motto, type of setting in the club, and that there. So I think he's greatly moved on, and I fully appreciate what has happened with karate at the background of it, the foreground.
Now, Jim, you call me out every podcast for this because I constantly bring up wrestling. My love.
Nothing wrong with wrestling. Nothing wrong with wrestling.
But
it's the tights, isn't it?
That's what it is. It's just the pure athleticism. But that is known. I'm going to say this as if I'm in the business, but that's known as in the business as a dusty finish. It's a finish that's not exactly over. So that whole ending of Karate Kid, where you're sort of debating, was it an illegal kick? It gives sympathy to Johnny Lawrence.
Hang on, no.
I can tell you now.
So
it
now
was
we
not
have
an illegal kick. Okay, I can tell you this instant now. Whenever you're using your hands and your feet, there's nothing illegal about you lifting your foot to someone's mouth if you need to hit them, and that is it. Just so happens Johnny Lawrence seen it coming. Daniel had his foot raised. He was 1 foot banded, so he was, and he kicked him. Johnny walked straight into that. If it had been me, guys, as an experienced fighter, I'd have taken the other foot first. Yeah, when he was
you'd have swept his leg. Gary would have sent him home in a body bag.
I'm just going to say this. I don't think if the Karate Kid had been set in Northern Ireland, I don't think it would have had the same kind of global appeal that it would have been set in LA. But who knows? I don't know. I could be wrong.
It would have been more blood. Yeah, I'll do your fucking leg, wee lad. That's what it would have been. It'd be 2 shots to the leg.
I can tell you it was not an illegal kick. From all the competitions I've been in, I've used that. Not that so much kick as in, stand on 1 foot, crane kick, but kicking someone straight in the face. You don't see it coming and you can't block that. I'm sorry, it's your loss. Bye-bye.
But
I'll take
that crane kick, I mean, all that made up shit. It was just...
Well, like me in my class, Joe, I'm all about, back to basics, the foundations of your moves and stuff like that there, and how your balance and your core is vitally important. And that at the end of it, Daniel couldn't stand on the leg and things like that there, so he had to find something to do. And just that wee glimmer of hope, it is movie cliche, that this was the move that won the competition and stuff like that there. But I think what won the competition was the determination to kind of continue on with Daniel, to show that even though you were hurt and you weren't, you could go on. And I think my memory of Karate Kid, the most that plays the part in my dojo is actually Karate Kid 3. So it is at the end of Karate Kid 3 when he has his leg bust on him by another. I forget the actor who played the competitor, but Daniel was on the ground crying, everything. He was quitting. And Mr. Miyagi came on and says, "You do not give up. There's nothing worse than losing than actually quitting." I think that resides in our karate club no matter what. I've got, kids who are 8 years of age coming onto the mat, they're coming off crying. I said, you get one tear, dry your eyes, get back on. It's building that character up, so it is. There is no mercy at our club.
There really isn't any mercy. There's a lot of leg sweeping, and there's a lot of there's a lot of no mercy in going on. And by the way, I meant to ask everybody tonight, did you take your shoes off before you came into this dojo?
Shoes are off. My wife can smell my socks, so yeah, they're off.
No, I've just been painting the house. That's how I've been getting prepared. Just paint up. What is it? Paint the wall. Paint the fence.
Yes.
So that's it. I don't know a lot, but it is great. You've actually brought it up a few times. The sweep the leg and going home in a body bag, and those statements you'll always remember those as Karate Kid, and again with the whole stand that 1 leg kick. It's one of those movies that will always be remembered and brought through. And I guess, it's worldwide. It's not just an American film. It's not a British, it's not known. It's global. And I think that's sort of helped the appeal of Cobra Kai. It's been able to use that and bring it through. And I guess what I'm trying to lead into is that whenever I heard about this show, I had such a low expectation from it. I think it was because it was on YouTube Red or whatever it's called, original, that streaming service. And then it got picked up by Netflix. And suddenly when it became Netflix, everybody was watching it because, quote unquote, everybody has Netflix. But what did you think about that switch? Would it have been something you had have checked out, or maybe you did check it out on YouTube before it moved to Netflix? What do you think?
I was lucky.
Go on ahead, Joanne.
No, I was just going to say, it was Honest actually, who's also in the dojo, in Gary's club, and she had said to me, well, she encouraged me. We actually belong to Gary's exercise class on Saturday mornings as well, where there is even less mercy because he's a bastard. Him and Carl, who take our class. The first things we usually shout at them is "fuck off, Carl" and "fuck off, Gary," because they just push us so hard. And so we got to know Gary through the class because Gary's and he encouraged us to do karate, and Anna had done karate before, and so Anna said, "Look, come and do it with me again." I went, okay, okay. And she had told me about Cobra Kai. And I thought, oh, that actually sounds really good because I enjoyed the films. So after a couple of months, I thought, right, I think I'll take a free subscription to YouTube Red for a month. And I did. And I was absolutely hooked. You cannot help but be hooked from the very opening shots of this. Just the way Johnny's portrayed and way Daniel's done. It's one of the best pilots to me that there is, because you don't think, oh, well, they could have taken that a wee bit further. Now, whether it was because it was 25 minutes, but I was hooked. But nobody else seemed to be watching it. And it was such an awful shame that here was an absolutely amazing series that you had to have a paid subscription for on YouTube. And let's face it, who's going to buy a paid subscription to YouTube? I know they keep trying to advertise every time you're on it, but nobody does. And I was pleased to see it moving to Netflix. But I did have that moment when it moved to Netflix going, I seen it first. You're all a bit late to the party. I seen it first. And it's brilliant.
I think the thing that YouTube did really well, and because I think it was YouTube Red, and then I think it rebranded its name, and then of course then Cobra Kai went to Netflix, and there wasn't that much original content for YouTube. But what they did, they took kind of like the drug dealer approach, the kind of like, we'll give you a little bit of heroin, we'll give you the first 2 episodes for free. You don't have to pay for them. Those are all good. And then I can't remember what specific cliffhanger it ended on. And you were just like, no, hang on. I need more now. So I signed up. I watched the first series on YouTube Red. I think it was on the recommendation, I think, of Bill Taylor, who's on this podcast quite often, from the Sixth Sense, another cosplayer as well. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, I mean, I know we'll get on to the 3 seasons. I still think, and I know this is one point I might be contentious on, the first series for me is perfect. The first series for me of Cobra Kai is perfect. It knew exactly what it wanted to do and what it was trying to do through the various strands of its storytelling. I think, in my opinion, in series 2, and really even more so in season 3, the grand scheme of things, it's got a little bit muddled, and it's now trying to do that thing that the new Star Wars films did, where it's trying to keep all the old farts like me on board, who grew up in the 80s and loved Karate Kid. Okay, I didn't go to take up karate, but I know a lot of people that did. I was talking not so long ago to Arlene Arlington, who's involved with one of the local community cinema groups, and she sent me a photo, I think she put it up on Facebook, of her when she was like really, really young, going to do karate and doing a karate tournament in Oma as a youngster, based purely on watching Karate Kid. It's keeping all those people on board, but it's trying to bring a new generation through. And I think in doing that, not that I'm just being that person because I'm that old fart that loves the first Karate Kid. I think it's kind of muddling itself. I think Cobra Kai at its strongest point for me, in my opinion, is Johnny and Miguel. And as you guys, Gary and Joanne, were saying earlier on, you get an idea that Johnny's very much this analog instrument that has been brought through to the digital era with being around Miguel and the benefits of both of them. But I think that's when Cobra Kai is at its strongest, and that's what the first series was all about. The second and the third series, I think, have just muddled about, and then you have kind of karate kind of madness going on in malls and schools and stuff, and it's just getting a little bit silly. But that's me.
Yeah. I actually have to ask, can I take this opportunity to actually ask Gary? Gary, you're a teacher. What did you think about the fight scene in the school?
Oh, it happens every day. I think it's just America being America, trying to, franchise everything, make it all nice for a lot of ones to follow. I feel the fight scenes, in fairness, they have to be choreographed. They're not probably the greatest or the most realistic, to be honest with you. But I actually find the relationship between Miguel and Johnny Lawrence, the first one, extremely good. But I actually also think that it develops even further in series 3. So in what he does and how he becomes that real apologies if you haven't seen it and stuff like that there, but a real fatherly coach figure to say, you know, you don't get fucked up here. You know, you are going to get this and you will get better and things like that there. So I think that in its way, I think Cobra Kai is more about Johnny and Miguel. I think the idea that we've all seen Daniel as the hero, Daniel as the successor, he was the one being bullied, he's come through. The tables have turned. I'm actually really interested in where Johnny's story's going to go. And now with everything happening from the end of season 3, I'm excited to see where it ventures out towards in terms of the whole Miyagi-Do versus, you know, strike versus strike.
You can see you can definitely see that, and in the first series, it is more about Johnny building bringing himself back into the real world and starting Cobra Kai up again to make himself, give himself a bit more purpose. Second series, I agree with you all that it does become a bit muddled. It's the two schools of thought. It is that, and the third sort of merged that together. I think the issue with the third was halfway through. I think they were waiting on a big return, which I don't want to, we're in spoiler territory here, but Elizabeth Shue was rumored to return since the end of the second series. So I think halfway through the third, they weren't fully go for that. So I think halfway through the series, it kind of shifts and changes, and it really does suffer from that. But it'll be interesting to see. I think the third series was the one that was the last one YouTube had maybe got involved with and had written for, and I believe going forward it will be solely Netflix. So it will be interesting to see what way they take it and where it goes from that. But I mentioned Elizabeth Shue. There's other major characters that return from the original series, of films, and you touched upon it as well, Gary. You said you always remember Karate Kid 3. Can you envision that there's going to be in series 4 we'll see more of one of the antagonists from the third film?
I think possibly where, just in my own opinion, of where the story might go, it'll actually turn to show Johnny Lawrence coming towards the good end of what karate is about and what it should be about, to weed out John from his Cobra Kai, how he took it over and stuff, and how he is taking it over, and I think you'll start to see an actual partnership and relationship build between Daniel and Johnny Moore to develop possibly the whole of Valley into the karate element that way to weed out. I think that there was a scene, and I'm not too certain if I missed it, but I saw it in a trailer about Johnny's outside his dojo and someone had taken over the hall next to him or something like there, and there were Brazilian jiu-jitsu around on the floor, and he said, "You're going, what the fuck you want to do that for?" Rolling about like that, they're hugging each other, and biggest, as he did turn out, he looked upon us as like fucking weird. You wouldn't get that matey shit, and he is. My own opinion is I love all martial arts, but there are some that that just I don't quite get. To be fair with you, in all honesty, Taekwondo's one.
Can I just ask, did you not find Series 3 a little bit anticlimactic in a little way? Because it was building and building and building to another of the all Valley karate tournaments, and then it's kind of like, right, okay, then. And I remember watching it at the last episode, kind of going, this has got to get through a hell of a lot in the last episode, and then they just were like, actually, no, we're going to keep that to season 4. Now, I don't know, because I know you mentioned that earlier on, Darren, like this was done and dusted by YouTube, pretty much ready to go. They just dropped it, and they decided rather than trying to put it up on their service, they sold it. Netflix bought it. So this will be the first one, which is all behind Netflix. So it'll probably have a little bit more money. But I just felt that Series 3 just, for me personally, just left at a real kind of like, okay, you could say it's a perfect cliffhanger ending, but now the fact that you've had COVID and all that kind of stuff, and you think of a show like Cobra Kai, the complications about shooting that in a kind of COVID environment. I think they are going back to film, but I just think to myself, you're going to have a hell of a lot of a wait. It's like The Boys on Amazon Prime. You're going, God, I have to wait so long for that now. But it didn't leave me unsatisfied in its finale. This, in season 3, did leave me that little bit kind of going, really? You're going to leave it there? you know, it's like Halo 2, sorry to go on computer game nerdy, but it's like Halo 2, it's like you're going to go on the last level, it's like, let's go finish the fight, and it's like, oh, that's Halo 3, and you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. I just find, seriously, a little bit, there's things I like about it, but I find it a little bit anticlimactic.
I really like Series 2. I know you're saying that you thought maybe it was starting to get a bit muddled from Series 2, but what I liked about Series 2 was it built Johnny up. Johnny became really quite successful, and it was nice to see that. Okay, he lost it all at the end, but he also made that connection as well to his old buddies in the dojo, and I thought it was quite sad. One of them was dying of cancer, and that guy actually, as far as I'm aware, was dying of cancer as well in real life, and he was the one that said in the original film, send him home in a body bag, and the awful thing was, he went home in a body bag. But I really did enjoy Series 2. I just thought it was Johnny's shining moment. And then Kreese came in, and you're sort of like, we're slightly surprised at this, how he managed to twist it and just ruin it all for Johnny in the end. Because Johnny, dear love him, even though he'd gone through shit with Kreese when he was a youngster, he still couldn't quite figure out that he was being abused again. He didn't recognize the signs that he's gone back into abusive relationship. He's so desperate for a father figure, someone to show them a way, and the hope that if Johnny was able to rebuild himself again, that Kreese could do the same thing. And Kreese sort of gave that impression that maybe he was a changed man, but he wasn't.
How do you feel about Kreese? Do you feel any sympathy for him?
I think he's a man that suffers badly from PTSD, really badly from PTSD. He was changed in Nam, but he's not taking responsibility for his own actions, and that's unforgivable.
Yeah.
I think bringing him back, in my opinion, I think bringing him back was the worst thing Cobra Kai did. I think, and I'm saying that as being the person who at the end of season 1, spoiler listeners and viewers, if you haven't seen even season 1, in the final moments when you see his return, I am the person who sat on my sofa and kind of went, yes, he's back. And it's that idea of giving in to fandom. And I've talked about this a lot on previous podcasts, and I've done articles about it. You know, I think when you give fans what they think they want, sometimes it can be a bad thing, and you can go off and do more interesting things with those characters than not bringing Kreese. Because I don't know. I just think he's just such a one-dimensional character. That said, the things in the season 3 about kind of the flashbacks to Nam and the backstory, that probably deserves a little, like a series of its own, rather than kind of being pushed into a part of an already clunky dialogue where you've got, clunky narrative, where you've got all this other stuff going on, the stuff with Miguel, you've got the stuff between the two girls, and you've got the kind of Danny losing his, he's losing his car practice. It's potentially going down the Swanee. There's too much going on. I think it's a strong thing in season 3, and it's kind of a little way of getting to know that character that is so one-dimensional, yet it's just at the same time feels a bit shoot in, where they kind of bulk out episode lengths. That's me. I think it was probably a mistake to bring him in, because he's become so one-dimensional. He's become this sneering villain. Really, he's like rent a sneer now at so many times, and that's literally what he does. Shows up to rooms and does like a sneer, says something, and then you're like, oh, he's a bad one now, Kreese.
But do you not like a wee bit of fan wank every so often, Jim?
Yeah, everybody likes.
Kreese is really fan wank.
I know he's
quite nice sometimes.
I know he's fan wank. Everyone likes a little bit of fan wank now and again, but I think it's what you do. People talk about, look at Star Wars, right? I'm the person I absolutely adore, and every time I rewatch it, I love it a little bit more. The Last Jedi, what it tried to do with Star Wars, and then when fans go, "Oh, that's not what we wanted. We didn't want that, Disney, when you bought this. We want to have this and that, and we want to have the Emperor back." And then when Disney go, well, okay, we've listened. We're going to bring the Empire back for Rise of Skywalker. We're going to do all this. It's going to be all what you wanted. And then when fans get that, they go, it's not what we wanted. And look, I don't even want to bring it up, because I know it's in a couple of weeks.
Do you know what the problem with the Disney there is? That people were just wanked to death with that one. That was just too much. It was just too much. You couldn't take it anymore. And I completely agree with Last Jedi. Definitely. It tried to do something different, and I think Ryan Johnson should be applauded for that. And it's just all the other rubbish from before just went over the shoulder.
Well, do you all think, like even you, Darren, do you think Kreese being in Cobra Kai really improves it?
I was waiting to see where it went, and obviously he does end up having Cobra Kai, and they did feed in a bit. I've read up on the backstory of him where he's allegedly, obviously Vietnam has played a part. He's never got over that loss in Vietnam, and you start to feel sorry for him. He's like a racist granda. You're not going to be able to fix him. You just kind of hope he doesn't, mess things up at Christmas dinner. You just kind of ignore him until you have to see him every once in a while. But as I said, I hope it's not leading down to Terry Silver coming back into it in such the way that he did in Karate Kid 3, where the whole thing is that he's a global, like, billionaire or something that is just wanting to make Daniel's life a misery. I don't see any benefit to that. So hopefully they smarten that up, and that there is a reason to have, Kreese in there for some reason other than just to be, as you say, standing in the background with his arms crossed, smirking and making the odd joke, or, making teenagers kick each other in the face, so he doesn't really give any sort of guidance to these kids, and I don't see where they're going to go in series 4 with that. So something external is going to have to come in and switch it all up again.
I think the only thing really he's there for is ultimately to be faced down by Johnny. And okay, I know I've kind of talked about series 1 and I jumped to season 3. The episode you mentioned in season 2, or I think it might be a couple of episodes, where you see Johnny reuniting with his old Cobra Kai buds, and they go off, and as you said, Joanne, one of them's quite ill. He doesn't see the end of the episode, or doesn't see the start of the next episode. Sorry, spoiler. But I love that. And there's a thing where they all talk about how they were taught karate wrong, and now that he wants to go off and do that differently. That's interesting, but it just feels I feel increasingly frustrated with Cobra Kai, because you kind of get a sense of, like, anytime it kind of dangles a semi-interesting idea, you go, okay, run with it. And then it seems to go, right, no, we're back to, karate kind of free for all in the middle of a mall. And you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. I mean, it's not Stranger Things. It's not that. And maybe it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's the thing that Bill Taylor used to say about the new Star Wars films. They weren't made for him. They were made for his children. And maybe that's me. I'm having that reaction that Bill had to the Star Wars films. When all the stuff with Johnny and Miguel, and even to an extent Daniel, you go, oh yeah, it's nice, and it's like a warm hug, and it's maybe not an outright fan wank, but it's a bit of a fan hug. But when it does all the stuff with the daughters and the kids and stuff, you kind of go, I don't know, I just don't find it interesting. Only one I find semi-interesting in season 3 was the characters in it, Hawk.
Yeah.
I kind of like what they did with his character, in the kind of sense that you see him being pushed too far, but like like Johnny in the first one, and then he's kind of almost redeemed. But yeah, he did break a guy's arm at the same time. There's a lot of times when I watch Cobra Kai now, you go, I just fucking call the police. I would just call the police and get all them arrested. I'm old now. I'm nearly 40. Fuck it. I've accepted it.
Well, Dimitri actually says at one point, "Can we not just call the police?" And everybody's like, no, we don't settle with police. Go around with the boys.
No, you
break
never.
A few legs.
You never settle. You just wait until the final of a regional karate tournament, and that's when you get your karate justice. You don't go to the police. You wait. But yeah, the choreography, when the fights do break out, that school scene in series 2 will always stick in my mind. There was about 6 or 7 different battles going on there. Even the little, like, 2 nerdy kids who you'd never seen before just decided they were going to beat the life out of each other, which was a nice touch, but it just showed the ridiculousness of it all. But I think as well with that, we also have to mention there's a very young cast coming through with that, and the choreography involved, the training involved. I actually did listen to an interview with Ralph Macchio talking about how they never actually got any karate training during the filming of the first 3 films. So to see all these guys coming through, all like the likes of Hawk getting all that technical training and doing it, 30, 40 times a day to get one shot on camera is great. But Gary, you're probably best to know this. Obviously there's the school battle out the window, but in terms of the one-to-one combat, is it realistic or has it been exaggerated?
It's been tamed down So it has. It's not realistic, to be honest with you, in my eyes. But then again, is it supposed to be realistic to a fair play in what even the Karate Kid was doing way back in the 80s and stuff? If you look at what it was doing, there was probably a bit more hard hitting back in the first three of the Karate Kids and stuff like that there. Not even mention the fifth one. But the fights, as you said, they're a young cast. They're trying to do their best. Probably none of them have ever done karate in their lives, or a martial art that maybe had, a couple of months training at that stuff like that. There, I've been doing karate for about 34 years now, and I can tell you, whenever we stepped on the mat when we first started karate at about 7 or 8, we wouldn't have even been hitting as hard as what you should have been hitting, because you were at a certain age, you weren't allowed to hit hard and stuff like that there. But the fight scenes, I think, could be a lot better in the area. I could fight scenes better in backyard, to be honest with you, just from the experience that I've had and how to do it. And
can I ask you guys, do you think it's how it's shot or how it's actually been choreographed?
I think it's how the cast are being protected, to be fair with you. I don't think it's not one bit realistic. The karate style that we focus on in Antrim is Wateroo. So, karate is all empty hands and stuff, no weapons or anything like that there. But we're a lot like Miyagi-Do, defend first and then attack. Cobra Kai would be strike hard, strike first. There's a load of different other type of karate, but it's mostly defense. But, the idea of you to do karate is to end it as soon as you can. And those fight scenes are prolonged to get, I think, a lot of younger viewers interested to see if they want to take up karate and stuff. And it's nice, don't get me wrong, I might have had an influx of people coming in, but I've also had them leave going, shit, that's not what I saw on Cobra Kai. So it wasn't, they hit me, so I think that it's there to protect the cast a lot because, as you said, they are a young cast. You don't want any injuries. And, ultimately, as you can probably see from my nose, it's been fairly battered about for many years. So it has. And, realistically, if you do go into a fight and you have a karate background, it's a one-punch end story. Good night, Irene. And well, I can vouch for that. I've done that many times, so I have.
I guess what I was trying to hint at, obviously, you compare the original Karate Kid films to Cobra Kai, and it's clearly aimed at a younger audience, whereas the Cobra Kai series is it's a sort of more mature, teenage and above audience. And, I don't think that limits it. I still think it's going to have that appeal as well. And as Jim mentioned before, there's a guy breaks someone's arm, and the same guy is described as, because he has like a cleft lip, he's described as that he went down on a lawnmower, but you can clearly see the difference in the tone of the original series. So I can understand people who have maybe watched the original Karate Kid films are being maybe put off, being like, oh, I don't want to watch that if it's just going to be a continuation. It is completely separate. But if I'll come back to you, Joanne, what do you think has been the sort of biggest shift that it keeps you focused? We're series 3 now. What's going to keep you watching for series 4?
Well, it's going to be actually very interesting how they're going to write Johnny into getting his dojo back. I have no idea how they're going to do it, because I agree they have kind of written themselves into a dead end, and this will be the interesting bit. This will be the challenge, I think, to see how they're going to have Daniel and Johnny work together to beat Kreese. Also, I'm not quite sure. Kreese only seems to have one student, or well, 3 or 4 maybe at the very most, because he has the Mad Tory and a couple of other kids as well. He doesn't have a big dojo. Between Daniel and Johnny, they have a lot more kids for each round. So I would like to see how they're actually going to even balance it out once they get to the All Valley Karate Championship again. Mm-hmm. I think Kreese, as much as I love Kreese, I'm sort of now thinking he is going to be a problem character when it comes to writing him. Because what do you do with him next? I mean, obviously the hope is... Sorry, what did you say?
I was going to say, apparently they have a 6-series arc they've kind of planned for this.
Really?
And I really don't know how they're going to stretch it out over six series. I really don't. I think it's, if that's what they're saying realistically with 6 series, I think at least they have an end game and they can build to that. But, from viewing season 3, it feels a bit like Lost-itis, where they've had maybe a shorter run planned, and now that Netflix have come in, and it's like, right, we're going to stretch this out, because I think had this all been well, you might have seen the All Valley tournament kind of finishing off Series 3, but then did you really want that again? You've already had that All Valley finale in Series 1. But I don't know. I really don't know, unless they're going to bring, so as Darren and everyone's mentioned, bringing someone back from Karate Kid 3, maybe bringing Hilary Swank back for, Karate Kid 4. Who knows? We'll not have Will Smith's son. We don't need him from the last one. No, it's all right.
No, he wasn't really doing karate. Apparently, he was doing a lot of kung fu stuff too.
No, but
I haven't seen Karate Kid 4 either, by the way, Darren. So you're not on your own there.
No.
But then that's nothing unusual for me to turn around and say I haven't seen the film. Jim will attest to that.
That's very true. Doesn't Kreese have? He has, isn't it Tori, and he has Robbie, doesn't he, as well?
Oh yeah.
So it's not bad. Like, I mean, he's got, like, I mean, if it was going to be Pokemon, sorry to go there. I don't know why I went there. You know, he's got pretty good ones. Like, you know, he's got some he's got some good fighters.
Tori is a complete sociopath. She doesn't, you know, you think, right, okay, this girl's going to have some sort of redemption here and catch herself on, because she has all these responsibilities for her younger sibling and her mother, who's seriously ill, but she's still going out there and living on the edge, and at any moment she's going to get arrested for some sort of disorderly behavior and get thrown in jail or juvie or whatever and not be there for her parent. So she is complete. She is the perfect sociopath.
Yeah, there was a rumor about Tori. No one really. There was a time when we didn't really know her surname, but I think it's been agreed it's Nichols. So there was rumors that she was going to be maybe Ali's daughter, I believe, or maybe even something to do with Terry Silver. So there's that whole, you know, who knows what way they're going to do that, especially with Kreese being a sort of mentor for her now. Will they go down that road that she's related to someone and she's just a psycho because it's genetic, or is it the way she's brought up? I don't know. But what about Robbie's hair, Joanne? How do you
I
feel about
know.
that?
Yeah, he lost the curtains, because I thought for a moment, if Johnny's stuck in 1980 something, it looks like Robbie's stuck round about 1997, round about the mid 90s. And so I was so pleased to see that they got his hair cut. But here, there's one son we haven't actually mentioned. I touched on him earlier. Was Daniel's son. Who was the wee fat kid in season 1?
That's right.
Where's he went? They don't seem to care about him.
He's in season 3, and he's about half the size that he was. He's still a wee shit, but he's half the size that he was.
Is he
it's
in
quite
season
evident.
3? Is he?
Yeah, he is. I honestly think he was the time that Daniel forgot to pull out, because it's quite evident, judging by the look on Daniel's face, every time he has to have anything to do with his son, he hates being anywhere near him. He complains about him in season 1 whenever the son demands to have a drink when they're at the country club, and he threatens to throw him in the pool. So there's not an awful lot of love there. Instead, it's all goes to the daughter, who just totally bugs the fuck out of me. I have to say, I cannot have her. I just don't like the daughter at all. Yes, Sam's she's just bleh. You know, there's nothing. Yeah, I mean, Miguel. I think Miguel was wasting his time there. Miguel could do so much better. Even Tori was more interesting than Sam. And everybody loves a psycho ex-girlfriend.
Yeah,
we've all got one. We've all got.
Yeah.
What did
We've
you
all got
think?
a psycho ex-girlfriend.
What did you think about that dynamic between Sam and Tori? You know, you had, you know, Miguel and Robbie fighting for, you know, the dojos and their fathers and the mentors, where you just had the two girls fighting over a boy. You know, what was, you know, I'm looking at as a boy being like, that kind of makes me cringe, especially nowadays. But what did you think of that?
Never had women fight over me. You know, it's something that I appreciate. You know, you lucky man. I don't know. It's for me. It's slightly weird to have girls fighting over boys, especially at this day and age. You know, when you've got young girls on, especially what we struggle with in clubs and schools and social media, the pressures of looking a certain way and stuff like that there. And then to show that two girls are actually going to fight to the death over a boy, and you're like going, that doesn't happen in life, people. It doesn't. You just cut your ties and move on.
I don't know. I don't know about you, Gary. I've had a few women fighting over me, but it's not kind of who's going to get me. It's who's you take him. No, you take him. Oh, for fuck's sake. I agree. I agree. I think it's 2021. Okay, this was filmed, maybe 3-4 years ago, maybe 3 years at most. I think to have those two female characters, their character arc in this series so far to be defined by, okay, not men, boys, I think is just a real depressing thing. And I think the fact that this is why I find it weird that, people are lauding it so much, and yet this is something, and I'm not trying to be like the woke person. I'm not trying to be that guy. I know from speaking to people on this pod over the years, like Juliana Monteverdi, you've come to think and look at things differently, and you think about things, and what's that character's motivation for that, and why is that problematic, and why is he saying that or allowed to say that, and you kind of think, really, when I was watching season 3, not that I'm being a complete bore all the time, but I was kind of find myself kind of going like, come on, seriously? I mean, you're going to have these two women who, whether you like her or not, Samantha, she can still kick ass. And I know that she can still kick ass, just, maybe, okay, Tori's a bit more sociopathic about it, but they're both two strong women in their own ways. And I yet to still have them fighting over a boy, or not really fighting over a boy, of the fact that it's a kind of like, oh, because you tried to steal my man, or you stole my man. It's like, oh, come on, this is something that would have been embarrassing in the early noughties, and it's not.
Oh, I don't know. No, I mean, have you ever been around Shaftesbury Square on a Saturday night? The wee hussies are knocking each other's malt in over, fellas.
Not for over a year, Joanne. Not for over a year.
there is a lot of nastiness in women. You see, when it comes to another fella, they can get really. Usually, it's more bitchiness, and if they were able to turn that into fighting skills, you would see a lot more of that. Believe you me, I have talked to women.
Does it not always fall down to mostly the fella's fault? He's obviously looked at something tastier. That's how the fight started. To be fair, he's caught something's caught his eye. Going, gee, I wasn't looking. No, what? No. Yeah, so it's always his fault. I'm not having that there, so I'm not.
No, it's usually the other woman's fault. This is how women twist it. That's why they don't blame the fella. They kind of almost think that, okay, the guy's stupid, and that's just a given. So therefore, I must. Yeah, this is the way to think. Therefore, I must take it out on the other woman, and that's why. That's why I kind of believe it, that they're not thinking, hang on here, I need to actually have this conversation with that person, with that expert, the ex guy. No, they're taking it out on each other, which is pretty typical for a lot of women. Yes, it's maybe not very. I agree that if that is their only reason within this series, then that is very poor.
It's their only motivation. It is their only motivation for kind of.
It is there, but I mean, yeah. Women
I just thought they would have
do bitch fight.
I thought they would have done that more sensibly. Like there was that whole, I think it's the first series, Sam's friend, Aisha, I think. She goes out of it, but she gets bullied. It's like cyber bullied. There's like a video going around of her. And you thought maybe that would be a platform where she could step up and fight the bullies back, or something like that. Not just my boyfriend Miguel was spotted with you after high school, I'm gonna beat you up with karate. It's just pointless. And you're right, that is, even if it was written 3 years ago, it's a 1990s plot line, which again is problematic. But I'm just trying to think, is there anything else that stands out in the show that we sort of think, right, that why are we still watching this, and why is it being recommended? So
I think one of the issues is the fact that it's a predominantly white cast, and really, apart from Miguel, where's the ethnic minorities?
Well, they went to China in season 3.
They went, covered 2 or 3 episodes, and also they had the girl in the first episode. I can't remember her name. She didn't come back for series 3 because her parents sent her to a private school. So there's not much in the way of people of color, ethnic minorities. It's still predominantly, here's an Oriental sport and here's 3 white guys. Now, I think they're kind of locked into that because that was the original characters. That was just a hangover from the 80s. But there is actually nobody Oriental in the cast. When you think about it, there's one guy, and he turns out to be a wrestler, and he's now with Kreese. But it has been facing a lot of criticism recently that maybe they need to think about widening the cast.
Is there not a really young, really small Asian guy, little kid?
I think there is who was
Is there?
Daniels, and like you said, there was the wrestler who came in towards the end
Mhm.
from this school as well. And there's another guy who comes in to join John Cleese's class as well. You know,
there's two.
There is another one with Daniels. There's not a bigger fella.
There's a guy at the start who was like a romantic interest for Sam in the first few episodes. He bullied Daniel. Oh, sorry, he bullied Aisha. I think he called her something, or he was bullying some of the lads. But
Yeah.
I know what you mean. And did they ever? I'm trying to think back. Did they ever?
Not an awful lot.
Yeah. Did they ever mention Ralph Macchio being Italian American? Or am I just assuming that? I thought maybe I'm getting mixed up with a different film, but did they ever mention that? They never, obviously he's got his car dealership now. They never mention that he is, he's 100% American, now, because it's not even touched upon. But, that is another thing that it needs to be addressed. And I think getting back to what we were sort of talking about at the start was, it has such a mass appeal. It is on Netflix now. Everyone has Netflix. And I guess what has really helped it is that it had such a low expectation at the start. But now we're getting to series 4. We're starting to see that there are problems with it and they need to be fixed.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm thinking, and I could be wrong here because it's only something I've been thinking of off the top of my head, is there much, and I'm not saying that there needs to be it there, but I mean, it's a very heteronormative in terms of its kind of the sexuality of its. And I know it's young kids, and I know I'm not going to kind of go in that much detail, but there's not much I can think of in terms of LGBT stuff. And I think back to, because I mentioned it earlier on with Stranger Things. I mean, and I know, Joanne, we did a podcast about season 3. I still love, okay, it was probably the one nod that Stranger Things did, but we have, isn't it, the character of, Robin, who admits Robin admits that she's a lesbian, and we have the character, isn't it, Will, and you're kind of sitting there the whole way through that episode, that moment going, don't be a dick, and he's just amazing, and I love that minute where it's like, it's not an issue at all. It does feel like, I mean, there's very much in terms of the relationship, it's, boy, girl, there's not much in terms of LGBT, not even a hint of it being issued or being dealt with. And I'm not saying every single, series needs it, but when we talk about, representation on screen, people need to see them represented, both in terms of their ethnic makeup, but also their sexuality. And, I don't want to mean the next series 4 to suddenly tokenism to appear, but it would be nice to see that, it is, as Joanne says, a largely white cast, largely heteronormative cast in terms of the characters they're portraying on screen. And, it is just, I really get surprised at just how many people talk about just, oh, have you seen Cobra Kai? It is the best thing ever since sliced bread. And I like it. I got in at the start, so I liked it. I would recommend anybody. I say this, season 1, even with all the issues we've mentioned, I think it's perfect. I think season 1 as a story arc is perfect. I just think it's now going to be probably a product, it's going to be a victim of its own hype, I think, as it goes on. It's like WandaVision. We've just seen fans are criticizing WandaVision and how it tried to tell a small story rather than try to kind of redefine the MCU within its series. People are disappointed with it now. I just don't know, how long that bandwagon can come on until something else comes along behind it and says, no, this is what you've got to go. I rambled there, I apologize.
It's funny you say that, because I actually did read an interview with William Sapka, and he talked about in series 1, the last shot that they filmed was him in a car driving down a road. I can't remember the scene, but he says it was his last shot of the series, and he remembers looking at whoever was filming. He said, "Look, this is probably the last shot we'll ever do. This could be our last shot, just driving down the road. How fitting! This is going to be the last one, just me driving off into the sunset." And at that point, it's clear that they didn't actually expect it to be developed to series 2 or even series 3. So I don't know where they've pulled the 6 series arc from, unless they've just decided to do this in the last, between the last 2 series and be like, right, we need to stretch this out. But again, there's only so many characters in those first films that are worth caring about. And as you said, they've already been to China. So that's pretty much series 2 covered. Or sorry, Karate Kid 2 covered. And then we're moving now into Karate Kid 3 and possibly, as you say, the Hilary Swank one. So hopefully they do get most of the problems fixed before then.
I just don't know where they go for if it is 60. If it is, I mean, I could hold my hand up. I could have read that wrong, but I mean, short form storytelling and long form storytelling, like, okay, a feature for an hour and a half, 2 hours. If you're going to have 3 big tournaments, all Valley tournaments, that's fine. But if you're going to do series after series, okay, series 3, as we've already mentioned, is slightly different. It finishes on a cliffhanger that's not around the tournament. But, you know, if we're going to have an all Valley tournament and then, like, okay, Kreese is gone. And then on the last one, you know, the next series is going to be Johnny against Daniel again. And some say, okay, I know in the last series they kind of came together, but that's only really to fight Kreese. I don't know how long that's going to maintain my interest.
Now you put me off at night, Jim.
That's what I do.
You're really, really depressing me. It's usually me that depresses you by not liking something. But yeah, I kind of need to go out and, I don't know.
What's your overall verdict, Joanne? What's your overall verdict as a whole?
I love it. I do love it. I mean, obviously I love it. I've got a cosplay of it. And Alice and I were running around like maniacs 2 years ago at DCC shouting "No Mercy" and "Sweep the Leg" before anybody knew who the hell we were. Actually, Jim interviewed us when we were at it. And people just, 2 people recognized us. 2! Because nobody else had watched the series at that time. I just think it captures the spirit. Maybe because I fancy Johnny Lawrence. I don't know. That might help it with me. And I think Miguel's just such a great wee character. I really do. And I keep wanting this. I love it when nothing goes right with Daniel. It gives me a certain state of satisfaction because he's a smug bastard. He really is. If they could just do away maybe with Robbie and his big mouth, and maybe Sam, I probably they could just take those 2 characters away.
Can I just interject and say, you know, one character we haven't mentioned in all this is the character of Amanda. You know, Daniel is a dick. You know, I think it's it was quite nice in the first series where they kind of like built it up as if, you know, Daniel actually was the real bully, you know, kind of almost to an extent, and looking at things from a different perspective. So in a way, you know, Daniel, and maybe not Miyagi, but Daniel would have been almost like a bully-esque character to Johnny, and how he would have thought of someone. You know, he took his girl and all that stuff, and he beat him in the tournament with an illegal move. That was all interesting, and kind of like what they did there. But I've also loved throughout it, you know, I actually really do like the character. It's Amanda. I can't remember the name of the actress, Daniel's wife. I think she's great. I think she's very much kind of the person who wears the pants in that relationship. You know, Daniel can go off and do his things and bugger off to China and kind of run off his Miyagi-Do, but yet she's the one that's like, hang on a minute, son, we have a fucking car dealership here to run. This is where we need you to be. Come on, give away a wee tree to someone there and just kind of get another car sale.
I suspect that whenever the bedroom door closes, that Amanda's the dom in that relationship.
You reckon she shows mercy?
Yeah, I would say she gags Daniel and she binds into the bed, and she is the mistress in that household. Yeah, she is a great character. She holds a family together because she doesn't take any shit. And the way she stands up to Kreese, and she even hits him at one point as well, which was just absolutely brilliant. She is a great character, and probably, perhaps we could go more down and explore her life a wee bit more. Do you know what? I'm actually not buying. I'm not buying the relationship between Johnny and Miguel's mum. I'm not buying that, I have to say.
I think Johnny definitely is. Johnny definitely is.
Oh well, he gets his bops out in season 3. Oh, he is. He is well in there, but because she's much younger than him as well, so he's doing really, really well. But I just don't know. I'm not buying it. And maybe I'm just jealous.
What did you think? That's all it is. What did you think of Elizabeth Shue coming back? It was the worst kept secret. I know, Darren, you mentioned that. Yeah. It's the worst kept secret throughout the whole series. You know, we knew whenever that phone was threw away at the end of season 2, and we see it light up with a text, like, all right, well, okay, we know who's texting that, and we know that she's going to come back. I mean, again, it's kind of going back to fanboys like me, going, oh yeah, there she's back, Ali's back, yeah, come on, Johnny, you're gonna do that you're gonna undo that great undone, that great, wrongdoing. But yeah, I find again, there were some nice moments between the two of them and between the three of them, between Daniel as well. But again, I just thought it was just because you've now got this character with Miguel's mum. What do you do there? I don't know, but in relation to something I said about kind of characters being defined, female characters, I think, Daniel's wife is one of the stronger female characters that we see, and she's not trying to kick ass or anything like that. And I suppose to an extent, you'd have to then say, weirdly, Ali is as well when she comes back. She's strong in her own right.
I was actually, when Joanne was talking there, I could see Gary, because we've already went to Gary for this sort of VAR decision, was the kick illegal, but what did Daniel steal Johnny's girl in the first one? I'll come to you, Gary, for that. What's your analysis of that? And is it justified? Is Daniel the bully?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, like when you watch the first one back again, they broke up. It's like the Rachel and Ross. They were on a break, So swing on that. So if something else comes along, in fair play. I don't think Daniel was a bully, but I do think he, as Joe says, he is that cocky little shit, even in this series, these 3 series through. But he was a cocky wee shit back in Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3. He was that wee twisty wee happening on him, and certain things, and trying to get in with Ali there and stuff. And I think it just keeps going with him in seasons 1, 2, 3 of Cobra Kai here, and just how he hasn't lost the cockiness. In fairness, he probably gets the shit kicked out of him by Johnny, to kind of knock that cockiness out of him in a way. So I think where this goes, I don't know where it goes. I would love to see that, Johnny and Daniel unite as one kind of club to kind of weed out John Cleese, and the evil. Because one thing you'll know from karate in how you fight and how you kind of approach a lot of stuff, which is one of the elements that I've kind of liked about Cobra Kai, which is, I know you all talk about character stuff, but the main element for me is how that it is not the dominant, stronger, physically able fighter that wins. It's the shy, backward ones whose confidence have been boosted. Like you take Aisha there and her bullying at the start of in season 1 and how she moved on, her confidence would have been getting lifted in those classes and how she was able to kind of overcome certain elements. And it is that there, if you walk into a battle and you're hyped up, psyched up, ready to go, you're walking out in a body bag. So you are, and especially in a match, if you're not calm and easy and ready to go and watching for the situation in terms of the karate, they've done that quite well, and how it's always been the calming element of the fighter who has that little bit more skill. Don't get me wrong, punching him out, no matter what skill you do. But at the same time, it's how they work that in a way in terms of watching and how they act and move. That to me as a karate guy, just it sells it for me that way. And
I know I mentioned that earlier on about that idea of, Johnny looking back at karate being taught wrong. And kind of just your kind of thoughts on that particular angle of the series. I know it's kind of been, it's kind of a part of season 3 as well and season 2. But looking back at how kind of that impact can have of people being taught karate wrong. I know you kind of said earlier on, if I picked you up right, you mentioned you kind of follow to an extent kind of the Miyagi-Do approach, defend, then attack.
Karate is basically the Miyagi-Do. John Cleese I don't honestly think he was taught karate properly. Whenever you look back in season 3 and you see his flashbacks about how he's being trained in karate in the army and stuff, that's not how karate is and stuff like that. Johnny would have been taught karate wrong. The whole strike first, strike hard, ask later is all wrong about karate. That is not what the karate element is about. It is about self-confidence. It is about mercy. So it is, it's about mercy in a way that when you know that you've beaten someone either in a karate tournament or in a fight outside in the street, and you walk away. You said over and done with. You said that's it. That's mercy. End of. Was don't get back up, and they know not to get back up. And in karate tournaments, it's a case of you don't go in to kill. You don't go in to hurt. You go in strong, But the way the karate tournaments work, there's only one organization at the minute, WKF, who are professional karate, who get paid to train, and that is their job. And so, they're getting paid to do that. Most of us are all amateurs. So we all have jobs to go to the next day, after a weekend of competitions and stuff like that. So we don't want to be walking in with broken limbs and stuff. It's not saying we haven't done so in the past. I mean, as I've mentioned, my nose already, fingers broken, arms dislocated and stuff, just from an accident happening. But Johnny has been taught karate wrong, and I think he's realised that. And Miguel has come in Series 1, and he's begun to realise that I have actually been taught wrong, and I should be doing more of a role to improve Miguel's life, where Johnny was just brought in to kind of be the dominant. Please, I think, wanted to have a karate club in All Valley, and that was the end of it. In fact, he was the only one who had a karate club at the start of it all, until Daniel found Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, that's true. And it's always going to be interesting. Obviously, they're both on the same side now, Johnny and Daniel, but now that Daniel it feels like Daniel may be training him in that way, and it will be a different dynamic going forward, and you will be able to see Miyagi's influence coming through. In fact, I mentioned at the start, this is called the Miyagi verse. We love a good verse, we love a multiverse, a universe, everything like that. So it will be interesting to see that coming through. When you're training your guys in Antrim, do you see? I'm looking at Joanne here in the corner. Do you see types of people who maybe have that Cobra Kai attitude coming through, and you have to stop it before it gets? I'm thinking it's like something like Slytherin or something. You have to try and. Oh no, it's like the dark side. I should have used the Jedi dark side type reference, but
well, as a sensei and a coach of karate, our role isn't just about teaching you how to defend yourself. That is one of the main things that we do. But our role is just to give you another way of viewing opportunities. So being put on a mat, how you view a fight when you're on the mat, and how you view a fight off the mat, to learn and develop things like that way. It's a big learning experience for all. It's life changing. You talk about no mercy and coming in hitting hard and stuff. Joanne will vouch for this young fella in the club, and hopefully he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. He's 18 now, so he should be all right. It's a young man called Darren McClean. He's currently at Queen's University, one of the nicest men that has ever come through our karate club. But he came to me when I first opened the doors of Antrim Karate Club 9 years ago. He was first through the door, and he's still there at the minute. But Jared came from, and he would have been a no mercy taking shit guy. So he would have been. He did not like getting beat. He did not like getting hit in the head. He did not like getting touched at all when he was on the mat. If he got beat 1-0, he was going in and hitting stuff and fuming and just all this anger with him. And now he's come round, and he's now currently a world champion in the karate. And he teaches a lot of the kids now going back. And he would even say, the karate changed his life, how he manages situations and stuff like that there. But like I said, if you walk in all anger and beefed up and ready to hit, and you're solid already, and we always teach a nice relaxed atmosphere in the club. It's never strong and hit hard, because once you tense up, you're slower and you see everything coming. So you do. One of the things we've done previously is we've worked with MMA clubs who don't touch karate at all. So you've got mixed martial arts clubs who look at boxing. You've got kickboxing that they do. They'll do jiu-jitsu, they'll do taijutsu, they'll do all these judo type things and stuff like that there.
Yeah.
One thing they don't look at is a lot of karate. And we went across one night because one of their coaches asked us, could you come across and just show us what you do? And I took 3 of our guys across, and their professional fighters could not touch 3 guys that I brought across. Our guys were in, hitting them, and back out. And they were just like, where'd he go? Like, you think we want to stay in there? Like, we know you're good at going to the ground. We know you're good at close contact. I don't want to get here. Have my foot. Take that there. So we're all about just relaxed and stuff like that there. Out with the anger. You'll get nowhere with anger. And I think that's just a general point of life, in terms of that there. If you hold it all in, if you're angry about stuff, you never make the right decisions. You have to step back, take that breath, take that outside view, weigh up your options and see where you go. Don't get me wrong, you can make a wrong decision, but at least you didn't make it yesterday.
I'll tell you what, it doesn't have tighten the sphincter when you go on the mat to spar with Jared. I'm like, oh. There's another girl in the club as well, Olivia, and she's younger, and it's just, you're like, shit. You're having to bounce around. But yeah, I can highly recommend karate. I've done jiu-jitsu before, and jiu-jitsu it's all about being right in there in the heart of everything and defending yourself when you're there. And some of the moves are absolutely fantastic. The difference with karate is it breaks it down into each individual movement, and it teaches you to think differently. You're planning a wee bit more, and you are concentrating on getting back and taking yourself out of the danger zone rather than staying in there, as Gary had described. So it is. I think it is definitely a healthier way to think, as well as you've also got the fitness element to it as well. So go out there and find a karate club, because you won't regret it, and it teaches you discipline. Because you think you can fight, you think, oh, if I went into something, no bother at all. Because you watch it on TV and you're like, oh, you're geared up and you're thinking, right, this is great, I'll be able to do that. See, when you go onto that mat to spar with somebody, you suddenly realize that you know fuck all. And it takes you to go to someone that does know it, to show you what you don't know, because you know nothing. You see them fight. You only have to see a fight somewhere outside, and there's no coordination with anybody. It's no different from what it is in schoolyards. So it is. I highly recommend taking up a martial art for the discipline of it.
My school of thought is just, when someone really bothers you, you just send a really long-winded anonymous email, just telling them exactly what you think, just through the right channels. No violence, no self-defense. Just remove yourself from the situation and send a really passive-aggressive message to the person.
I just get my mum to go round and sort them out. That's what I do. As my father says, you don't mess with the Rottweiler. So, even in these COVID socially distanced times, if someone bothers me, even now as I'm nearly 40, I'm like, Mum, he said this. So, so if you've ever wronged me, you'll not hear from me. You'll hear from my mother.
Well, could we not just send Gary round? Gary, you go round, sort everything out for us.
Well, no, but I think I agree with Joe as well, just on the element of having a little bit of self-defense, because you never know what's around the corner on a night out or anywhere at all in the world, or when you need to kind of block or hit something or do something. You just, as much as you'll never be in those situations. I've been doing karate 34 years now, and if I fought on the street 3 times out of those 34 years, it's been 3 times out of those 34 years, and it has been one hit and away I go. In fact, karate teaches me to walk away quicker and spot trouble more so, to be honest with you.
So hang on, Gary. Are you a bit like Nicolas Cage's character in Con Air? Just that one time you had to kind of, get out justice, and luckily, you weren't sent to prison for a long, I don't know, this could be a really awkward conversation, this bit, but you weren't sent to prison for a long time and ended up on a plane with a group of convicts with they have nothing to live for and you've everything to live for.
Kind of like it as well, because one of the things we were always taught in Belfast, where I learned my karate in Rosario on the Omer Road, was that, if you're going to fight, you end it quickly, and that's it. That was it done. You just end it. You just put it down and finish it. We have particular moves in karate that you can, if you train well and you use it, one move and it's good night. It's how you do it, and I get suckered in quite easily, because whenever Joe and people start talking about karate and like how you punch and different things, and people turn around and say, yeah, I punch with this and I punch with my arms. No one, if you know how to punch karate, I can tell you now, you will never punch with your fists or your arms. You'll actually punch with your foot. So I weigh 15 stone. So if I'm going to punch you, I'm going to use all my body weight in the small palm of my fist here, this here, and I'm going to put 15 stone in that. We all know physics. That's a small surface area. 15 stone is going to be more.
You punch me and I'll get my mum around you. That's it.
And Darren will send you a strongly worded email.
It might take her a while. It might take her a while until he wakens up, to be fair.
Might take her a while, but you still get there.
I just love how the panel silenced when he said, yeah, I punched from my foot. I was looking at our faces being like, we're all trying to work out how that's possible.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I know.
There's many times in the class I get taken off trend, and it's about the science behind karate and the science behind your balance, where it is, and your counterbalance and your physics behind it and stuff like that. I could talk for hours about it. I could do one move, and it would be an hour and 2 hours talking about the whole science behind it.
Right, lads? You know what you've got to do? Hang on, I'm just warming up my hands here like Daniel, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to massage this afterwards, because you're gonna be so sore. It's not a happy ending, by the way, with the massage. It's not that sort of massage. It's just because your bones are gonna be sore. The thing, Darren, about a strongly worded email is
this is the second
always
time.
come back.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna stick to the swimming. That's what I'll do. You know, when the swimming pools reopen, that's what I'll get back to. You know,
That's it. Guys, any final thoughts on Cobra Kai just before we wrap up this panel? Anything else you want to discuss or add?
We need a new drinking game. Every time Daniel says Mr. Miyagi in a scene, you take a drink, and you will be shit-faced by the end of an episode. Because Daniel can't go through anything without mentioning Mr. Miyagi. It's a bit like a guy who never really got over his first wife, always talking about her.
do you not like though that Miyagi's such a big part of the series still? And they're still kind of finding ways. Some of them are a bit like, really? That's a bit cheesy, that's a bit tenuous. But the fact that they've at least tried to keep that character so important. So here's me being the old, near 40-year-old, fanboy who loves the Karate Kid. So a younger person coming in to watch this go, why was Miyagi so important to this? And then you just go, okay, I'll be old man here. I'll get there's the VHS's son or daughter. There you go, and watch them. I like that they've tried to keep him. Yeah, I agree with you. Daniel can't get over his fucking love for Miyagi.
He can't.
And you kind of get the sense that he just kind of looks up to him every so often. Just maybe I hope he doesn't look up to him at the point of climax. But I like that they have at least.
I was thinking that.
Yeah, if Joanne can go to that level, I can go to that level too. But
if in doubt, go down, Jim.
I like that's my motto. Some have strike first, strike hard. I just always go down. But what I like is the fact that they've at least tried without it being too cheesy of keeping Miyagi an important part. Even just something like the Miyagi-Do, the car. I like that that's there in the series.
Do you know what I'd love to see them do, actually? Replace every time Daniel says Mr. Miyagi, say Master Yoda. And it would just give it a completely different slant. I would love it. Master Yoda said whenever he was cutting up fish for sashimi, he used this knife. Just Master Yoda instead of Mr. Miyagi.
Do you ever think his wife just turns around him and just says eventually, "So I'm go, would you fuck up about Miyagi? He's dead. I'm going to cut the fish my way. I'm going to slice the bread my way. Fuck up, Daniel. Away into the car dealership and sell a fucking car."
Yeah, I've just had an awful thought. Do you think when he's coming and his wife, he shouts Mr. Miyagi?
That's not how Mr. Miyagi does it, though. I don't think so.
That's what she says to him. That's not how Mr. Miyagi did it.
You're ruining it for everyone, actually.
Yeah.
I always do.
Well, on that note, that's about all we have time for just on this panel. So it's now time really just to say thank you to the guys for getting involved. So Joanne, thanks very much.
No problem, Darren. Thank you, Sensei.
Gary, thank you very much for your insight and for finally clearing that All Valley final up again.
That legal karate kick, certainly no bother.
Legal. And Jim, again, thanks very much for sitting in on that and providing some necessary balance and, and for keeping Joanne under control for most of the...
There's certain things I can do, Sensei, but that is definitely not one of them. I'll try my best, though. But there is no mercy.
No mercy.
Don't be a pussy.
Well, look, thanks very much. As I said, Cobra Kai is available on Netflix. Check it out. Let us know what you think. And we'll be back with another podcast soon. Thank you.
This has been We Need to Talk About Movies. Thanks for listening. For more information, visit banterflix.com. See you next time